I really hope and pray that you have found your Lenten journey so far to be enlightening or insightful, or I hope that whatever you're doing or however you're doing it or living this season of Lent, I'm really hope that you're coming to new insight, because what I came to realize this past week is that there's something stirring in me that has actually changed some of the core, I think, of who I am. I never expected this in 40 days, because I'm not like dead set, like, oh, I got to do this and this for Lent. I'm really praying a lot more, and that's what I made my commitment to do this Lent. But it's changing me, and I'm rather rather kind of intrigued by what's happening. So one of the learnings of faith and life that has hit me is this. It's this. It is in the awareness of our own brokenness and our woundedness and our pain that I believe you and I are able to set aside our defenses and truly encounter God. Okay? I'm going to do that again. It is in the awareness of our own brokenness and our own woundedness and our own pain that I believe we're able to set aside our woundedness and set aside our defenses and truly encounter God. And I've also learned this, or at least been exposed to this, that the certitude of judgment is one of the greatest and most dangerous beliefs that we can bring to our journey of faith. Right? When we believe, my friends, when we believe that we have all the answers, when we believe that we understand God and how God thinks and how God works in this world, when we believe that we have the insight into God that nobody else has, then really what we end up doing is making ourselves God. Yeah. And while I firmly believe that each and every one of us are, as human beings, are created in the image and the likeness of our Creator, I believe it is our ego that can often cause us to see ourselves greater than what we were created to be. I know that's a little odd, right? But I think our ego can do that to us occasionally, and when it does, then we run into making ourselves into God. Maybe, my friends, that's the fruit of the story of Adam and Eve that we hear about in the book of Genesis. Maybe the original sin, if there was one, right? Maybe the original sin of this world is believing that we can stand in judgment of another person and then have the audacity to think that we understand the depth of their brokenness and their pain and say to them, your sin is greater than mine. Right? Yeah. I spent 2 days this past week, 2 days working with an associate warden and a security captain as we interviewed chaplains for positions in the Department of Corrections, for chaplain positions. And believe it or not, when I go back into prison once a month, which I do now, and when I stepped back into prison on Thursday and Friday, my heart really kind of jumped for joy. It was, and I thought to myself, wow, dude, you're crazy. You know, something is deranged with you. Who in their right mind gets joy out of going back into a maximum security prison? That does not make logical sense, right? That just does not make sense. And yet, I did. And I really have. Every Thursday, the same experience happens. My heart kind of like, and it's not about, I really have thought about this, it's not about this feeling of being useful or something like that. I got plenty of uses on the outside. It's something else, right? There's something spiritually happening there, and I really had to pray about it. I did come to this conclusion. I think it's because inside of the prison, there is such profound awareness of brokenness and pain and shame and disappointment and anger and frustration that one can almost feel it in your bones, right? I mean, you can just feel it when you step in. It almost hurts. It almost hurts. And at the same time, At the very same time, there is a profound sense of holiness and of peace and of unity. On this journey together, each and every one of us are. And it is in discovering that recognition, I believe, and in realizing that we are all struggling together in our own brokenness and our own hurt and our own pain, that we're trying to understand how we live life every day. It's just inside, it's more intense, right? It's more like really real in your face. And what you have is staff and incarcerated persons standing there face to face, dealing with their own junk, as we proverbially say, right? You have to deal with your junk when you're in prison, whether that means you're staff or you're an incarcerated person. I think that's exactly what happened to the one born blind in the gospel today. And he or she, whichever, the one born blind gives it voice in this gospel. I think it was beautiful because the Pharisees said to the one born blind, "We know," there's the certitude, I think we say we know, we're already in trouble. We know this one is a sinner, right? We know this one is a sinner. And the blind one is the one who calls us out and says, I don't know whether that one is a sinner or not. All I know is I was blind, and now I can see. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward about not creating any judgment about this person of which he or she knew nothing. I do not know. Well, you might. I wonder if that might be precisely the purpose and the reason for the season of Lent. Not to beat ourselves up, not to shame ourselves or shame anyone else, but rather to take the time to realize that there is no one in this world who is not broken. There is no one who is without pain, and there is no one who is without woundedness. Maybe this Lenten season is a time for us to recognize that we know nothing about anyone else, other than the fact that we share a common humanity and we share the woundedness of being human. So here rests what I think the challenge of our gospel is. To answer this question for ourselves, is someone else's brokenness too much for us to bear? Think about it. Jesus, the Savior of the world, was condemned to death by society, and yet we believe that his passion, death, and resurrection is our salvation. Isn't that unique? Because today, he wouldn't be crucified on a cross. He'd be incarcerated in one of our prisons.